Today's topic is why shame keeps you stuck. My name is Ashley Bloxham. If you're new to the channel, I am a therapist. I specialise in childhood and trauma, but I'm an addictions counsellor. I've overcame addiction. I think that qualifies as the most, but I've also studied it right the way up to PhD level. And I also know what it's like to have loved ones who struggle with addiction. So I do really understand it on many levels. So today's topic is why shame keeps you stuck and can actually negatively impact addiction recovery. So one of the things that I had on the last live that I did was somebody was talking about how I was romanticizing addiction, and they turned around and said, well, I've never taken any drugs, so it is the individual's fault. And it's really important that people realise that addiction is not the individual's fault at all. It's a perfect storm of childhood experiences, potentially genetic predispositions which make you more susceptible, trauma, feeling disconnected from society, poverty, and all of the other impacts which happen with poverty and social economic deprivation. So it's just a perfect storm where life is being really challenging compared to somebody who hasn't had that perfect storm, who's had calm waters growing up. And what it's meant is that addiction, everybody tries substances or alcohol or smoking or whatever it is. Everyone's got their vices, but some people end up having an addiction because it's not just a bit of fun, it's not recreational, it actually is serving a purpose and it becomes a crutch. So it's really important that if we're going to tackle addiction recovery, that we really understand why the addiction has occurred. And what was really sad about this is on my last live, I had people who were in the addiction industry trying to argue, saying it was the individual's fault. So you're going up a collective idea that it's an individual's fault, which is then hammered on by policy, and it's just not true. So if you are sitting here and you are feeling shame around your addiction, feel like you're failing, like you're a bad person. I had someone call themselves a demon on one of my lives recently. If you feel like that, I need you to go away and learn about why addiction occurs, why it specifically occurred for you. You can do an ACEs test. I talk about them all the time. If you want that, just comment on my any of my content and I'll send you a link to do it. But there will be reasons, and when you work out the reasons, we can let go of shame and say, okay, it's understandable that I've ended up with addiction. However, although it's not my fault, it is my responsibility. And it needs to change, but I need to be kind to myself. If I'm going to take on addiction, I need to be on my own side. I can't be fighting the addiction and fighting my own negative thoughts, which are kicking us while I'm down. It's really important that we try and eliminate shame if we're going to have successful recovery. Let's see what people are saying. Hi Gums, hi Guy, how are you doing? Got my little mods on. T saying sounds like an interesting subject. Thank you. Yeah, we're just talking about addiction over here. And if anyone who's joined, I'm also a therapist. So if anyone's got any questions around addiction or mental health, I am happy to spend my time answering them. BW is saying, what's the best bread for cheese for your perfect grilled cheese sandwich? I'm always going to be a Warburton's toasty girl, not going to lie. Gums is saying, it's down to how how our brain is wired differently to the average person. Yeah, it is. And it's down to a combination of susceptibility. So some people are more susceptible to addiction, and also some people have different wiring of the brain. If I have repeated childhood trauma or you have diagnosis like ADHD, you're more likely to do it because of your dopamine dysregulation. But equally, things like bipolar, BPD, or autism, we struggle with emotional regulation, and suppressing your emotions is going to be really helpful, because remember, dopamine motivates us to the things which are worthwhile. If we're struggling with an internal emotional storm and there is substances that give us dopamine hits and also suppress our emotional storm, the dopamine's going to drive us towards it every time. So it's just human nature, not personal failing. Keisha is saying, how's your day going? It's going all right. I'm full of cold. But yeah. Other than that, I mean, I've overcame addiction, so a little pesky cold isn't going to take us down, that's for sure. So do you think that addiction is a disease and not the person doing the drugs a problem? So I don't think addiction's a disease. It is actually in the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic manual for... It's basically... The DSM-5, if people don't know what it is what psychiatrists and psychologists use to diagnose people with mental health disorders. And it's usually where somebody has a subset of symptoms that are in alignment with a diagnosis, they'll get it. So it is in the DSM-5. So it's a disorder. So alcohol use disorder, substance misuse disorder, because it changes the brain chemistry. So in that sense, you could argue, but it would be classified as a disorder, not a disease. But it's a susceptibility. So addiction is more, it's a form of self-medication. And that is the truth of it, the top and bottom. It's an adaptive strategy to deal with a root cause. So it's not so much of a disease as rather a manifestation or an attempt to soothe something that's going on underneath. And that can be a whole host of really shitty things that someone's got to deal with. So it's not an individual, it's not the person who's doing something wrong. The person's actually trying to survive an internal storm. It's something that's really painful, whether that's trauma, disconnection from society, disadvantages from childhood, undiagnosed mental health disorders. And the thing is, we had somebody on the channel the other day who was saying the work in addictions, who was trying to say it's an individual problem. And there's not one piece of evidence in the well over a decade that I've been studying addiction which has said that it's the individual's fault. It's just not. But yeah. Muck is saying cold what for me if you got a spot of man flu or you're a man, because I feel like men are just little wimps when it comes to colds. But interestingly, because men tend to, it's something to do with testosterone, men do actually feel the effect of a cold more than women. There's research on it. But yous are still wimps because I did childbirth with no painkillers, so you're not getting that much sympathy from us. Somebody said, have you just farted and tried to play it off? No, I would own it. Although I've got to admit, I was in the barbers with my son, and I pumped and it stunk, and I just walked away and let my son take the rap for it. He was 4. What else are kids for? Right, are you living outside the USA? Yeah, I live in the UK. How do you go on with Jaden's saying? So Jade Green is saying, how do you go on with life knowing that you keep doing the same thing over and over again? Well, this is the thing, like it's really hard. The thing with addiction recovery, it's the hardest thing I've ever got through because it felt impossible. And for a long time it was impossible. So that really does make you feel like shit when you're constantly trying to do something and then you fail and you're racking up shame. You start to feel like, I can't do it. Then you've got this rhetoric about like, it's my fault, I can't do it, I'm not strong enough. And it's not that you're not strong enough, it's just the fact that you just haven't got the right capabilities at the moment. So if we're doing something wrong and we keep doing it, and I don't mean wrong as in morally wrong, I mean like we're trying to do something and we're not getting it right, we keep relapsing or we can't stop in the first place. It's not that we're weak or that we can't do it, it's just that we don't have the right tools. We don't have the right information. We don't have the right people in our fight in our corner. There's something missing, and maybe we've not hit enough rock bottom. Maybe we haven't got the motivation, because addiction recovery is so fucking solid. It is the hardest thing I've had to do, and you know when you've got to do it, and let's be real. a lot of people, when you have addiction recovery, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't. Most people, like, the shit hits the fan during the early recovery, or at least at some point, and we would normally go to that thing, but you've got to be even stronger and still not do it. It's hard, but it's because we haven't got the right things and resources and motivation that we need. And I would say a big part of that is shame. If we're shaming ourselves, it's going to be really hard. Bobby's saying, we all have to hit rock bottom. I would say that rock bottom is a good place for people. But for me, I don't think I hit rock bottom for me to stop. It could either be rock bottom or it can be a hook. You need one of these two things. So you need to hit rock bottom, and you think, I just can't go any, like, I have to stop now. Like, I can't let this get any worse. Or you have a hook, you have a reason that is more important and more motivating than the addiction, that shining light. So for me, my reason was being a mom. I kept relapsing whilst pregnant in the early stages of his life, and I just thought, I want to break this generational cycle. I don't want my son to have to grow up and end up either becoming an addict or having mental health disorders because his mom was an addict. So I had to, for me, it was the hook. That was like, I don't want that for my son. For some people, it's rock bottom, but you need one of those two things, I would say. You need a North Star. And maybe your North Star is like, I don't want to go to this place anymore. I don't want to go further. Or maybe it's like, I don't want this outcome. William's saying, I hit rock bottom, then fell down a hole, then I fell through the floor and that hole some more. Yeah, this is the thing, like, there's always going to be a more rock bottom. And I think sometimes it's about, okay, we spoke before about maybe there's just things missing. And look, if anyone wants to come to my addiction group, it is starting on Sunday. You're welcome to. Just come to my go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk, and it's all about stabilizing you. It's all about giving you the tools so that you can pick yourself up out of that hole, and also about getting your mojo back so you can sustain recovery. Bobby's saying you need some good people around you. Yeah, you really do. Is this my Bobby, by the way, on here? Because one of my friends came on before and I didn't recognise the name. Or is it a different Bobby? Jeeves is saying I was close to rock bottom. If I really applied myself, I'm sure I could get there. Yeah. Yes, it's your Bobby. Hi, Bobby. How you doing? Yeah, like we can always apply myself. Look, wherever we put energy, we're gonna go. If we want, we can apply ourselves to addiction, or we can apply ourselves to getting out. And look, let's be real. Like, as people who are struggling with addiction, we are like mega hustlers. We make that shit happen. So we can make recovery happen if we want to. But it's just about not just saying, right, I'm gonna stop. It's about, okay, what do I need to do to stop? Like, realistically, what do I really need to do to stop? So Bobby said we need good people around us. So if we've only got dickheads around us, or we've only got other addicts around us, maybe they need to go. Or at least be at arm's length. Like you can still be in my life, but just be in my life over there, please. Maybe it's that we need some accountability. We need some kind of accountability. So that might be groups. For me, I told people that I was struggling in addiction. I knew that not telling people wasn't working, so I told people. And I went and ordered some drugs tests on Amazon, and I said to my dad, do you mind doing drugs? Like, can I do drugs tests? Keep us accountable. So maybe we need accountability. Maybe we just need to love ourselves, because every time we stop, we feel like shit, so we need to know how to love ourselves in them early stages. Maybe we need to learn to regulate our nervous system so that when we're having a craving, we can deal with it. We don't get consumed by it. We can practice that before we stop. Right, I'm just going to scroll around because there's a lot of comments, so I'm just going to dot around the middle and end so everyone has a fair chance. FBI is saying addiction is bad, but cybercrime is worse. Smart home devices are emerging as attack vectors, change default passwords and update security software. Yeah, we've got to, I think though in addiction, I think the least of your problems is your software security, I'm not going to lie. That would have been very low on my list when I was coming out of addiction. I think but yeah, if you're out of it, pay attention to your software, guys. Flappy Bird in pants. The only condition I suffer from is blindness because I can't believe how cute you are. I mean, obviously you're not blind if you can see how cute I am. Right, I am cute anyways, so I would say 20/20 vision. Mastery comment. Why do people get over something like addiction then make it their entire life? I don't know. I mean, for me, I've studied addiction before. So my weird story is I was training to be an addictions therapist before I had an addiction. And the reason why I started was because I had loved ones who struggled with addiction. So I wanted to help them. And also I took drugs, and my friends said it was between that and a sign language course. So I was doing a counselling degree. And my friends were like, one of my friends was like, you would not be able to learn sign language, Ash. Because his parents were partially deaf, and he's like, even I don't know it. And then my other friend was like, why don't you do the addiction module? Because you take drugs, so you would ace it. And also I had loved ones who struggled in addiction. So I ended up getting a proper love for it. And I thought I want to do that. And then I ended up getting addiction because I was taking drugs recreationally, like wrecked every single day, but not hooked on one specific thing. And then I developed an addiction. So addiction was already my life before. Unfortunately, addiction has been my life left, right and centre. Like, even if I don't want to be around it, it's just constantly there. So I might as well help people. I'm trying to quit drug, and Mr. saying I'm trying to quit coke and drink alone quite well, but still end up doing it every weekend. So Mr. is that so with coke and alcohol? So cocaine by itself isn't chemically addictive, but because alcohol is, if you're drinking alcohol on the weekend, then what happens is it forms a compound called cocoethanol, which is alcohol and cocaine mixed together. So if you're having a drink, the first thing you'll think is I want a line. So you might go all week without. This was the problem when I used to take coke. So when I'm saying I didn't have an addiction, when I started wanting to be an addictions therapist, what would happen is I wouldn't have coke all week, but as soon as I have a drink, whether that's a Wednesday or a weekend, the second the drink touched my lips, I was like, I want a line, and that's because the compound's chemically addictive. So it is a really hard combination, and I would say it's the alcohol that you need to really focus on. But what I would say is, if you're drinking alcohol all the time, so anyone with an alcohol addiction, it can be fatal stopping alcohol if you're drinking it every day. So alcohol addiction is something that you need to be very careful coming off, and you need a professional. But if you want to have a one-to-one and you want to join my group, Mr., you're welcome to do that. Just go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk. She's from the Newcastle, 100% Lee saying, yeah, I am. Little Geordie lass over here. Right, I'm just going to scroll around and see if there's any questions. So I'm a therapist, so if anyone's got any questions around addiction and mental health, ask us and I will answer. I feel like that would be much more helpful than whatever, as somebody who said, can you say top of the morning to your mate, especially when I'm not even Irish, for fuck's sake. God. Right. So William is saying, I hit rock bottom then. Oh, I've already read that one. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions around addiction and mental health, then I'll, give us a question, I'll answer it. Hugh, I don't want to spend the rest of my life avoiding it or remembering my addiction. Yeah, Hugh, do you know what it is? Like, for me, I want to support people in addiction because I've studied it for like years, and I'm a therapist. I've dedicated my whole career to this. But I do really believe that it's important, like, you know, this idea of, hi, my name's Ashley, I'm an addict. I talk about this all the time. That can be really damaging. You know, you can be a recovered addict and you can close that chapter in your life. And I do truly believe we don't have to sit there in fear of being an addict. What we need to do is build our lives up so it's so fucking amazing and solid and peaceful that addiction isn't even an option. There is just a past chapter in our lives. Religion is an addiction, Sal. Yeah, I felt like I was. Yeah, I suppose it could be. Look, addiction can be anything. I think I was really like addicted to spiritual practices at one point. I was like super spiritual. It wasn't helpful. But you know, addiction is something that you've got a problem with, that you want to stop, that you can't stop. That's the framework that I work with, because there's a few different definitions, but I'd say for me that's the most accurate. So addiction's a problem that you want to stop, that you can't stop. So religion, if you don't want to stop it and it's not really a problem, and therefore there's the, you know, the can't stop is irrelevant, I wouldn't say it is an addiction. So yeah, I wouldn't classify it as. Love how she say, but it could be problematic to people with babies. Kaz, love how she says, ask me a question and then ignores your question. Kaz, there's I've probably, when I come off here, I have like over 1,000 comments, so it's really hard for us to see them. So Kaz, I'll try and find your comment. And when there's like loads of like little comments, I try to go through. All right, okay. So Kaz has said, okay, how to beat a weed addiction of 30 years. So first of all, you could come to my addiction group, Kaz. It's free and we'll have a one-to-one. But what I would say with, first of all, look at what the purpose of the weed addiction is. So if I've got an addiction, what we could do is look at why am I doing the addiction in the first place? So what's the purpose of it? So the pros, let's be real, anything that we're doing repeatedly, there's going to be some kind of enjoyment out of it. So maybe it just lets you switch off. Maybe you have an overactive brain. Maybe you feel chilled. Just write down the list of the good things about smoking weed. Then look at the negatives of it. So what is not so good about it? And then try and think about, okay, so the good things, what can I replace them with? What would bring us the same thing? So that's the starting point. So you're not just removing it without replacing what it's actually good for. So for me, I'm going to quit smoking. I have quit drugs, but this is my next addiction. So for me, when I smoke, like I have a cigarette, I instantly feel relaxed. So I've spent the time leading up to stopping, learning to just relax my nervous system, do things which make us feel relaxed. So I've got something else to lean on. I would say also try and get rid of the habit first. So for weed, you know, like if you wake and bake, don't wake and bake. We're going to have to replace it with something different. So get a little hobby or something that you enjoy that you do when you wake up or whenever it is you'd have your first joint, and do that. So you've got something that you're not associating with weed that you can do to fill the void, but also you're getting used to saying no to yourself. Like, no, I'm not going to do that right now. And you're also getting rid of the habit. I'd also say with weed, specifically the weed, when we're smoking joints, if that's what you do, I know obviously some people have pipes or bongs or whatever, but if you're smoking joints, you've got nicotine in it, so that's going to make it harder. So I'd try and remove the nicotine, try and smoke it in a different way so that you're not having to deal with something that's chemically addictive mixed in with the weed, which is the nicotine. Because weed's psychologically addictive, nicotine is psychologically addictive and chemically addictive. So you're mixing it in with something that's chemically addictive, which is going to make it harder. So that's the logistics of it. But I would also work out why has the addiction occurred in the first place, which I've spoke about a lot on the channel. I would say is really important. Has anyone got any tips and tricks for quitting weed, which help them? So Brad, why are you trying to deter people from something natural that comes from the earth? So I'm not here to judge smoking weed. at all. Like, I really don't, for me, like, I'm not here to moralize drugs. It's just when somebody's asked about, like, this is about addiction, not about specific substances. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you could sit here, it's addiction is where it's a problem. So let's look at gambling. You could have somebody who goes, like my friend, she goes to, Bobby, who's on the channel, she goes to the races with our partner. I'm not going to sit here and go, how dare you gamble? You know what I mean? Like, that's, if she has fun, that's great. There might be somebody who has a drink once a month with their friends. There might be a single mom, and that's how they let the hair down. And it's really important that they get to go and let the hair down. Great for you. Not here to sit there and say, don't drink. There's people who smoke weed who used to have crack or heroin addictions, and that has been life-changing. Or people who just, whatever. Like, if it's good for you, that's great. What I'm here to talk about is when people are, like, like, I've had someone I was speaking to yesterday who was saying that they just used to feel ashamed of themselves because they're waking and baking, like they're smoking weed and they're feeling ashamed of themselves. Like, that's what I'm here for. I'm not, if there's people who I know who's like ruining their lives through gambling, that's the gambling I'm talking about. So I'm talking about problematic use of stuff, if you get it. There's no judgment here about smoking weed. Like, I am not in a place to judge. Trust us. Right. So Jesus Christ is saying, stop holding in your hits. Just take normal hits and your tolerance will go down. Then take one less hit every time you smoke. Taking less hits every few days. Yeah, that's such a good point, Jesus Christ. So reducing down. So I spoke about like getting rid of your habits, because they're going to be the hardest things. Like, they're going to be the biggest triggers. So get rid of your habits. So if you usually, you know, like I say, wake and bake, it's the first thing you do, or maybe you have a joint before you eat, try and get rid of those habits, but also reduce down is a really good tip. And this is all on the practical side as well. May by the Sea is saying, what was my drug of choice? Ketamine. Obsessed with it. Literally. Jonathan Walton saying, it's only when you actually stop doing drugs or drinking that you realise how bad it is. Yeah, the thing is as well, like, that is the truth. Like, life is, like, it's so hard to stop. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's easy, but, like, when you come out of it, you really feel like, fucking hell, like, that, like, actually, you kid yourself into thinking that you feel good when you're on drugs, but actually you don't feel good. You feel like shit, and you start to feel good and enjoy life, and you're like, wow, like, actually I feel good now, and I was kidding myself into thinking I was feeling good. Hiya Double Tap, how you doing? Check out Double Tap's music. Double Tap does music, and it's like all around recovery, and it's great. And also help support a fellow person who's just taking a chance on life after addiction. So Double Tap is saying, the lack of self-love and self-acceptance is the root cause of most of addictions. We hate ourselves, so the natural progression is addiction and vices to cover those self-loathing feelings. Yeah, and that is the case for a lot of addiction. There are some people, you know, who maybe are struggling with, like, say, fibromyalgia or you know, physical pain, who might smoke weed. That, you know, there's always exceptions to the rule, but the majority of people are struggling, and their addiction is because they're suppressing something. Like, if we go back to weed, if you're waking and baking, you're smoking weed all day, every day, you are escaping from life. Either you're escaping from your own thoughts, or you're escaping from your internal world. And it's really important to learn how to love yourself. Is really, like, woo-woo as that sounds, like, love yourself. Sounds so woo-woo, but it's so true. Yeah, Never Give Up is saying, never mind weed, it's nothing compared to crack cocaine. Weed got me. I know, got me off crack. Yeah, this is the thing. This is what I said before when somebody's saying, like, why you go like bashing weed. I'm not. I know that weed saved people's lives from crack cocaine, severe alcohol, severe crack addiction, and you know, like, if that is working for you, like, you've got to think about, like, you've just got to do whatever's best for you. I'm not here to judge, and let's be real, if we've got to look at the reality of stuff, like, if that saved your life and you used to be on crack addiction, I bet your life's a million times better now. So yeah, addiction is just something where it's a problem that you want to stop, that you can't stop. And yeah, if you don't want to stop weed, it's not a problem. It's been a savior, then, like, then go smoke your weed and do it shame free. And this is my thing. My friend, she had a weed addiction. It did really ruin her life. It was really ruining her life, and she ended up smoking weed again. And she came to us and she said that she was feeling ashamed. I was like, look, if you're gonna smoke weed and you don't have any intention to stop, at the very least, don't shame yourself, because, like, stress and shame is so bad for the body. Like, it's so bad for our mental health and our physical health. So if you're gonna do it, like, don't sit there holding on to shame. So I'm not gonna shame you. That's for sure. So a double tap is saying, it sounds so far-fetched at first, but once you decide to make that choice to stop, you become willing and open-minded. Sorry, really quite unwell, and able to open to new ideas, perspectives, and suggestions. Yeah. Do you know what it is, guys? I'm really aware that my brain is, I'm reading, I just read double taps thing there and my brain was blank. I think I'm quite unwell with this cold, and what I'm worried about is I'm not really giving you your due time and attention that you need. And obviously I've got to think about ethics being a therapist. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end it, because what I'd hate to do is just give half-hearted answers back, which I feel like I'm doing, just because my brain's not at full capacity. But look, guys, I'll be back on Monday at 10 a.m. and then 9 p.m. I'm sorry that I've only done a half an hour. And if there's any comments that anyone sent that I've missed, because I know there's quite a few, just go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk, and I will respond to you. I don't want people to feel like they've being left, but I feel like yeah, I've just got to be ethical, and my brain's just completely blank. Bye, Guy. Bye, everyone. Oh, I'm doing my addiction group though also. If anyone wants to be involved in my addiction group, which is starting on Sunday, hopefully my head's not as bloody pounding as it is now by Sunday. But if anyone wants to join my group, go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk. It's completely free. But yeah, thanks, double tap. Bye.